In this session of the Purple Coffee Podcast, I interview Erin Blaskie about hiring mistakes and what it means to be forever free. Welcome to the Purple Coffee Podcast, inspiring stories from creative entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Turndog, and welcome to session 4. Today I interview the marvellous and beautiful Erin Blaskie, a Canadian entrepreneur who was one of the first people to embrace virtual assistants. It's not all she does today, and quite frankly rocks the internet marketing world. But before we get to Erin and her inspiring stories, let me discuss a little more about the Forever Free campaign. It's all in aid of I Love You, my third novel, and I'm very excited to share it with the world. The Kickstarter has been up and running now for a little while, and the support I've received is gobsmackingly amazing. I can't wait for this to unravel, and so far this band of merry misfits has guided me down a crazy good path. The emails I've received, the support, the kind words, the general way people are embracing this concept, it means a great deal. And if you're one of those crazy merry misfits, thank you so much. It means a great deal. But there's still plenty of time to go, and the more eyes that can see the campaign, the better. The more pledges, obviously, the better. And it's not only about the money, it's about trying to build this band of merry misfits and turning it into the greatest journey known to man. I want to quite frankly redefine the relationship between writer and reader, and I want you to feel part of this novel just as much as I do. So head over to turndogmillionaire.com and you'll find various links to the Kickstarter campaign, or you can head to bit.ly/kickstart-v-on-love, and all the information's on there, including videos, the plot of I Love You, and why exactly it is going to be forever free. Crazy idea, I know it is. People have said I'm a bit insane, but whatever. I've got my reasons, and you should head over and check that out. But we have an interview to get to, and I'm delighted to share the marvellous Erin Blaskie with you, who is a girl next door darling indeed, and what an inspiring entrepreneur. It all started off with a virtual assistant business before virtual assistants were really a thing, and these days she helps brands and entrepreneurs fulfill their internet marketing needs, and is generally a pretty incredible person to follow online. She writes some amazing things, and a great person to follow on Facebook, and was a real pleasure to have her part of The Successful Mistake, which this interview is in aid of. For those who don't know, it's a book I'm writing for entrepreneurs, about entrepreneurs, and the great mistakes they've seen and how they overcame them, because I, for one, love mistakes and feel they can be the catalyst to greatness. And on this occasion, Erin talks about the treacheries of hiring people and the mistakes that can happen along the way. I can assure you I've interviewed quite a few entrepreneurs now, and this one pops up again and again and again. So I'll stop chatting nonsense and pass things over to Erin. But not before I tell you a little bit about Erin, and I do it in a way only I can in my crazy storytelling mind. I've created a little about bio for her, so here we go. I've got some notes, so I won't be looking at the screen. Erin Blaskie is the incredible hulktress of the virtual assistant world. Sure, she may seem innocent on the outside with her spiffy good looks and girl next door smile, but Eric Bana wasn't exactly a football hooligan, was he? Oh no, don't be fooled by Erin and her ways, because although she doesn't turn green and run amok over towns and cities, she does transform the lives of many and gives the good folk of Canada a heck of a good name. Take that, ice hockey. Erin has you beat. Starting a virtual assistant business before virtual assistants were really a thing, Erin now helps internet folk leverage their unique offerings and transforms brands and their marketing ways each and every day. The Hulk may smash, but Erin does digital strategy things and is really friendly and kind. I doubt she'd smash anyone. People from Canada are cool like that. Talks to. I'm delighted to be joined this evening by Erin Blaskie, who is a digital strategist and also the author of Started on Commodore, which I think probably is a bit of a throwback to your childhood. Was it an early computer by any chance, Erin?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I think I was about 6, my dad handed me a Commodore 64 and basically started my journey with this whole love of tech and then of course once the internet came out, the internet. But I mean, it was definitely the what I call my pivotal turning point. You know, the moment when I knew that this was who I was.
Fantastic. Well, I have vague memories of the Commodore. I had one when I was younger, and I can't really remember too much about it. It was back in the early days. But before we get going on this interview, which is all in aid of a successful mistake and about mistakes and overcoming them, first of all, if you can just introduce yourself, what it is that you do, and what you do at Erin Blaskie Digital Strategist.
Sure, absolutely. So essentially, I started my business 10 years ago next year, which is when I say that number to myself, I'm floored. I don't know where the last 10 years went, to be honest. But basically, I started my company as a virtual assistance business. And basically, what that is somebody that supports business owners from around the world virtually in any number of services. So that could be social media. I mean, it wasn't back 10 years ago, but early on, it was administrative support, it was web design, graphic design, online marketing support, etc. And of course, it's evolved over the course of the last 10 years. But now the way that we still do those services, like that's still our core business. But the thing that's changed is that my own level of experience over the last 10 years it's been enormous, as is any entrepreneurs when they've, done 10 years of business. You accumulate and gather up just this wonderful collection of knowledge. And so for myself, the reason that I recently kind of rebranded to the idea of a digital strategist is because what I do is not limited to, one specific thing. It's sort of pulling from all of those things. But at the core of it, what I do is I help businesses come online. And then for those that are already online, I help them really leverage the internet to, grow their business, generate leads, increase sales, whatever their goals are, essentially kind of helping them figure out like how are they going to do that? And then when they figure out what they want to do based on what we've talked about, then my team sort of takes the big plan and we break it into steps and they action it. So it's this nice combination of let's create a plan, let's get clear, let's get your goals aligned, and then let's do it. Let's actually make it happen. So it's a great combination.
Very cool, taking all the skills you've learned over the years and packing it
Yeah.
into another thing. And I'm guessing you must have been one of the first people to sort of do virtual assistants back in, it'll have been around about 2002, 2003?
Yeah, it was 2000, August of 2004, is when I
2004.
launched the business. Yeah. And I was definitely one of the early people, early adopters to start this type of business. Because I remember being like back then, people would say, "What do you do? What's your business about?" I'd, go to networking events or whatever. And I remember saying to them, "I'm a virtual assistant." And people were like, "I don't get it."
Are you an AIM graphic or something? I mean, that's what I feel like people
Well,
would have
exactly.
thought of back then.
So funny because my very first website, and I think it's still on the Internet Archives, like the Wayback Machine thing, but my very first website had this like girl sitting in sort of this virtual pod, kind of like Star Trek like. And she's on her headset working on a computer, but in this like caterpillary like pod. And that was my first website.
Yeah.
And I remember people going, "So are you in the, like, are you working in the computer? Like, what's happening? How do you do this?" And it took a long time to
Are
really.
you a real person?
Yeah, exactly. You're not just computer like bits and bytes because I mean, and so it took a while to sort of educate the marketplace as to what it was, but it also gave me a huge advantage because coming out in a brand new industry and being able to sort of be one of the for whatever you want to call it, the leaders of that particular industry and sort of leading it forward and having other virtual assistants come to you for, coaching, training, and advice. And it really kind of gave me that advantage to sort of help mold the industry in a way. And not that I take any credit for what's happening in it, but definitely, helped kind of, I would say, pave that path for others to do it.
Definitely. And I think
Yeah.
that's what people need to remember when they're watching this, because everyone now has heard of virtual assistants. Many people watching will have used them or may even be one themselves. But 10 years ago, it is so difficult sometimes when you're coming into something and you're trying to convince people that this is a real need, this is a real profession. And it's easier once it's been done. But when you're an early adopter, it can be a tough ride.
Yeah, and I have to say, I mean, I was very I don't want to use the word lucky because I don't really think that there's anything in life that's truly just pure luck. But I was very fortunate early on to, I think I just happened to start it at a perfect
Mm.
time. It was like right on the cusp of that sort of that amazing time on the internet. If anyone watching was a part of the internet at that time between 2004 and well, when the recession happened, really, it was just this magical, internet land is what I like to call it. And so the possibilities and the opportunities and the everything was just so huge, and it was really inspiring and really sort of was the catalyst to, I think, letting 10 years happen. I think it was the perfect timing.
Very good. And timing is always, perfection. So it is
Yep.
always good. But
Yep.
I wouldn't say it's luck per se. It's good timing, good timing. Well, I've got to say, I'm really intrigued to hear about your particular mistake in business because you've had 10 years. You started with an industry which was, bare bones at the time. You've seen it
Yes.
grow and evolve and develop. So I must say, I'm quite interested to hear what your mistake is, how you turned it around, and what you've learned from it since.
Yeah, and I kind of have, if it's okay, I kind of have two.
Of
Like
course.
they're related,
Yeah.
but there's two. So what ends up happening a lot when you start a business is that you, at least for myself, I knew nothing about starting a business. I knew nobody in my immediate life that had a business. I was not surrounded by entrepreneurial friends. I didn't have, like nothing. It was just this very like I woke up one day and was like, I'm gonna start a business, and I did it, and that was it. So I had no examples, nothing. And so what ended up happening is that a lot of the business, when I was, starting it, growing it, etc., was all trial and error, like every part of it. And I always tell my clients now, like I learned all the lessons so that I could then, help my clients not make those same mistakes. But so, in saying that, two of the mistakes that I made early on, and that if I could go back and do it over again, totally change it, is that I grew really, really fast without being prepared for growth. And it was so damaging to not only my business at the time, and I mean, I can say that now because I'm like well out of it. So clearly it hasn't affected the whole business as a whole. But um, when we were growing really, really fast, there was kind of two things that I didn't do. I didn't hire the right people, which is my first mistake. So that's the first one I want you to know is hiring the wrong people was detrimental to the business. It didn't allow me to grow it the way I wanted to grow it. It didn't allow me to have the right people in the business to support the growth. It didn't have, I didn't have the just the right people in terms of the mindset and keeping sort of the corporate or not corporate because it's not a corporation, but like the company philosophy and feeling together. It was very like disjointed and just didn't feel right. So not hiring the right people was really, really detrimental. But then the second piece of that was just growing too fast, just too out of control without having the proper systems in place, without having, without kind of taking my time. Like I think I was just sort of like letting the business go out of control, which was in some ways very good. I had lots of sales, like business seemed good, but at the core of it, it was falling apart because we could bring in lots of clients but couldn't manage them properly, and we weren't really focused inward on the customer, but we were focused outward on more sales, more sales. So I think the second mistake was just that, just growing way too fast without being prepared. And so if I could tell my past self something from my present self, I would say just slow down a little bit, prepare, plan, and set things in place before you need them versus getting into the midst of it and then needing it in crisis mode and then making decisions that aren't necessarily the best decisions for you. Because again, some of those wrong hires were simply because I was stuck. You know, I was like,
Mm.
I need people. I don't care who they are. As long as they're willing to work for me, they're good. You know, like no reference checking, no, not, I mean, it was terrible. But I did what I had to do to kind of survive. So I would say plan in advance and then just I know it's counterintuitive to what you would think in terms of saying go slow, but you want to just go a little slow.
Yeah, it's so interesting because a lot of people they start out, and I think there's two camps. There's those who know they're going to be a success and they're a great salesperson and they know they'll be able to get the clients in,
Hmm.
and it's easy to get lost in that because, like you
Hmm.
say, the sales are coming in, money's coming in, clients are
Yeah.
coming in. You don't have to worry because you're making money, and that's what business is all about, right? And then there's the other side of things where you think, oh, it's not going to happen to me. I'm not going to be one of these overnight sensations. You know,
Yeah.
I'll just plod along maybe for a few years, but you never know when that big spike will occur. And either side, you know, whether you're that pessimist or the optimist or
Yeah.
somewhere in between, you need to plan for when that success does or doesn't happen because otherwise
Yes.
you can just grow too fast and it spirals. And
Hmm.
I'm guessing when you started making the bad hires, it was more through necessity rather than anything else. It was like, I need to make
Yes.
this hire in the next, you know, X amount of times. Let's go and do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, no, and the thing is, at the end of the day, you know, you can't take back any of the client experiences that your clients have. And you know, once those client experiences happen, they happen, and
Yeah.
then people remember how they felt, you know, inside of your business. And that's probably one of the things that like still to this day that I carry is that I know there was a few clients we definitely let down, you know, in that time of great growth and, you know, growing pains and learning curve and everything else. And you know, and I've since like I've, you know, reached out to them and we've patched things up, but I still have that like feeling in the pit of my stomach when I think back to that. I'm like, oh, if only, you know, if only I knew, if only
Mm.
I knew, and if only I hadn't said yes so many times. If I had said, you know what, yes, but in a couple of weeks, or yes, but you know, we'll do it, you know, like let's do it a little differently. I think if I knew that then, I wouldn't have had to experience some of those extremely hard situations because especially like I have a service-based business, which means I'm working directly with people all the time. And when you're working that closely with people, you know, you're working with emotions, whether, you know, you should be or not. You're working with emotions, you're working with sort of the customer experience, you're working with all these different things that are very people focused and people centered. And yeah, so I mean, I still like when I think back, I'm like, oh, I just wish I would have known, you know. And had I known, I might have been able to move a little bit more gracefully through the growing pains, because I think every business experiences them in different ways.
Yeah.
But I think it's like if you can move through with grace and ease versus, you know, frustration and complication and just these moments that are really like not they're just not fun to go through. I think it makes it a much more fun experience overall.
Yeah, and it is important. I mean, especially these days where competition is so rife in pretty much
Mm,
all areas, and especially doing something like you were doing in a service based.
yeah.
You know, that them first impressions are so important. And I look at myself as a consumer in those moments of doubt. How many times have I used something once, maybe not liked the experience for whatever reason, and then moved on?
Yep.
Because you don't have any loyalty in the beginning when there's so much competition out there. You know,
Yeah.
loyalty is pretty difficult to come by. So sometimes, yes, taking a step back is
Mm,
exactly what you need to do to make 2 or 3 steps forward. It might take a
yeah.
year instead of 3 or 4 months, but in the long run, it could make all the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's, yeah. So that's that. I would definitely say that. I would say grow slow, even if it feels counterintuitive to what you want to do, or grow fast, but maybe set out with if that's the intention of growing fast, then make sure that you've got the foundation built
Mm.
solidly before you do that, because otherwise you get you're going to just get some cracks in that foundation,
Yeah.
and then the rest is history. It's just going to be built on something very, and it's not that you can't come out of it. We were fortunate. We were able to, be very self-aware about what was happening, and work to fix it. But it took a while, and it's much harder to fix those issues in the moment than it is to put them in place to begin with. But
Well, especially when you've got maybe 1,000 clients, which you've got as well. You're thinking, I've got these problems to fix right now, but I've actually got all this work to do too. It's
yeah,
tough.
yeah. It's well, exactly, because then you're
Tough
balancing,
balance.
managing, working on your business and in your business, and then it's just, yeah, it's a nightmare. So absolutely that. And then just hire the right people. Hire the right,
Mm.
like, and don't be willing to settle on the wrong people, because I've gone through, we've gone through our fair share of team members in the past when we were moving through that growing pain period. And now the team members that I have now, we're a solid unit. We all have the same ideals, the same philosophies, the same outlook on customer service, and what's important. And it makes the world of difference. You can show up and, like, things move with ease, and you have people that are invested in creating systems that are going to work for your clients. It's just such a different business altogether. So
Fantastic. And I'm guessing it's giving you such a different outlook now after going through them early pains. On the hiring side, I'm guessing you have them high standards. You're not worried about maybe taking weeks or months to find the right person because you're not in a position where it's like you need that person now. You're planning for well in advance. And I've also noticed on your site in the past when I've looked that sometimes you say, I aren't taking any more clients on until, 3 or 4 months in the future. And
yeah,
that really does tell me immediately that this is a woman and this is a team who says, right, we have a schedule, we have a workflow. Once it's filled, it's filled. We don't take any, any sort of leniency from that other than maybe every now and then.
yeah, no, we definitely do. And the systems that we have now that are in place, like at every client touch point, are so different than they were in the past. And, now instead of sort of looking outward and saying, how can we get more clients? Now we're really, like, in the last, I would say, 6 months to a year, really focused on the customer experience as a whole. So, what does it look like from the moment that they, reach out to us, even before they become a customer? What does it look like the whole way through? And really making sure that at every point there's an opportunity for us to, check in, make sure things are good, evaluate where they are, make sure that it's a good fit even before we become client and vendor. But just that whole process, and being able to kind of stop and do that, and look at everything, has really evolved the business. It's allowed us to really provide a level of service that in my opinion, we've always provided really great service, but now it's like taking the great service and making it exceptional on the whole customer
Mm.
experience of it, versus just yeah, we do good work, because doing good work is only going to get you so far, but being able to take it to an overall exceptional customer service experience is just going to, I mean, we haven't spent a single dollar on marketing in 10 years.
Really?
I'm not even joking. Like,
Wow.
not a dollar aside from our website, like,
Yeah.
which is, I think, it's just a fixed cost for most online businesses, obviously, but not a dollar. I've never, except, well, okay, that's not true. I've experimented so that I could tell my clients, with Facebook ads and Google ads and things like that, but never out of need.
Yeah.
It was more of a, let's play with this and learn it, so we could support our clients with it. But yeah, so I mean, I think it's really vital. Obviously, having that inward look at your business and making sure that you're planning ahead, and kind of, sort of stopping those growing pains before they happen, helps tremendously. So yeah.
And again, it's a bit more of a slow burning approach, and it can scare some people. The thought of, "Ooh, but I should be spending all my time looking for clients." But
Mhm.
in a day where, like we mentioned earlier, competition's so stiff these days. Good isn't good enough, and if you
Yep.
want to be remembered, if you want to go to them sort of higher sort of regions which are only available for the few, you've got to do memorable
Yep.
work, and that needs
Yep.
you to take a look at yourself, your service, every single touching point, and how you can make things better. And to do
Mhm.
that, you
That's
usually
true.
need to take focus away from elsewhere, aka, looking for the new client day in day out.
Excuse me. Yeah, absolutely. Makes the biggest difference,
Mm.
because a whole bunch of people can provide the exact same service, but depending on, where someone goes, how they're made to feel through the process is just as important. So, if not more important, to be honest.
And I would imagine one of the greatest things about all of the mistakes that you've made, because you're a service-based individual, you're able to pass these on to your clients. So you probably come across clients all the time who are going through similar things that you have been through in the past, and you can go, wait a minute, I've done this in the past, we saw it go down this route, and if you take this route instead, certain things will change.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I'm very transparent about everything. Like, I'm transparent in my blogging and my vlogging and everything that I do. I don't believe in anything else other than being 100% transparent. So I'm willing to share those, those hardships, those moments, because, do I wish they never happened? Yeah, of course, everybody does. Like, if your whole life was just wonderful, perfect, that would be amazing, but that's not reality. And so I feel like if I was to hold those things in, it's not doing anybody any, justice. And I feel that if I can take them now and say, I did this, it was terrible, here's what to do instead, and it helps them not to experience that. I feel like that's, helping me to counter the had gone through it myself, so it kind of helps to balance it all out in the universe.
Yeah. It's good, and it's very useful for a lot of people, because I imagine a lot of the people who watch this and who will read certain things, they're getting into the service-based things, because a lot of the new entrepreneurs who are coming in, setting up online, they're service-based, whether it's consultancy or coaching or online courses. So it's good to know that the mistakes that you make today could help the clients of tomorrow, because that's always...
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like, they can become great case studies, great blog posts, anything. So, and the thing is nobody's going to like look at you sharing a moment like that and say, ooh, back away, I don't want to work with that person because of that. If anything, it's going to make them, understand that if they're going through a similar moment, or they know that they just don't want to go through that moment, then they can read your account, understand what happened, understand where things went wrong, and then how they can avoid it. So I totally think that it only helps. And we wouldn't be where we are today in any business and any part of our society if we weren't sharing those lessons.
True. And especially in the last 10 years, when it has become such a sharing society, it's been very shareable. Okay, well, fantastic. Before we end this fantastic interview, then, I'm hoping you'll just share a couple of pieces of nuggets for those just starting out, especially in the service-based online world. You've obviously mentioned hiring correctly and growing gracefully, which I like. What other sort of little pieces of advice would you give for those just starting out?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, a couple of the things that I would advise, people that are fresh into doing this is definitely find yourself a mentor or someone that you can look to sort of like, especially someone that's even in your own industry, because I don't believe in competition. I think that we're in a time right now when collaboration is so important. And I think more and more people are realizing that, that there's room for everybody. It's just, a matter of being a little bit different. So find a mentor, someone that you can look to see what they're doing, not to copy, because I cannot stand that. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves in business, is copying. But look to someone that's, really being really inspirational to you, and then sort of, just model yourself after them in ways that, again, is not copying. So you want to be, sort of taking it as inspiration, especially if it's someone that's willing to talk to you, because you can have two kinds of mentors.
Yeah.
You can have a mentor.
You're talking maybe a mentor in a case of not the one-on-one actually speaking to them, just a mentor, someone who you can base yourself on and learn from.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's people that are out there that might be doing something that you're like, wow, I really love what they're doing. And you can kind of watch from afar. And I can still consider those people mentors, even if they don't know they're, being your particular mentor. And then, of course, there's people that you can engage with and say, hey, I love what you're doing. Can I hire you in a mentor capacity? Would you be my mentor? Whether it's, maybe not hiring them, but just finding someone that you can, really sort of get some great advice from early on. And then I would also say, just going back to what I said about collaboration, if you are a startup, one of the things that I've done, and I've only done this just this week, and I've been I've been doing this for 10 years. So don't wait 10 years to do this, but I work at home. I work in my home office. I'm, for the most part, fairly isolated from, any sort of community. And what I just did this week is I signed up at a co-working space, which essentially allows me to go and work in an office space that is filled with other people just like me. And so what is so cool about that, and this is why I would say to do it like right from day one, is that you get connected into this like entrepreneurial ecosystem of like people that are exactly like you, which is rare to find people that are workaholics, crazy, like just we're crazy as entrepreneurs. We're a little bit crazy. And but
It's true.
so find a co-working space or something similar. I don't know if you have them in England, but basically a co-working space is for anyone that doesn't know that's watching, it's like an office space that's shared. So you all go, there's tables and desks, and you just work, and it's amazing. So go to places like that. Don't be afraid, because I always thought I don't need to be around other people, but the exposure to other people's brains and brilliance and talent is just so amazing, and it'll rub off on you, and it's fantastic. So collaboration, finding a mentor, are two of the things I would say early on. And if you do those two things, I really think that, just kind of immersing yourself into that whole scene is going to really impact your business overall. So
Definitely.
those would be the two places I would say to start.
Very cool. And in the collaboration side of things, I bet there's some amazing stories out there where people have met at them co-working spaces and created a new business or created a new conference. Or there's so many possibilities. You never know when your kindred spirit in the entrepreneurial world is going to be, sat at the desk away from you. And
I know.
if you lock yourself in your room all day, you can't obviously meet them.
It's true. And I think because we're so virtual right now, like in this virtual world, it's easy to feel connected, like on Twitter and Facebook and, all the different social networks that we have. But it is different. It is so different to get out and take your computer and go sit at a desk and actually have to talk to people face to face, and have a coffee, and it's just different. And I was one of the people that for literally 9 years was like, I don't need people, like I don't need human people. I have virtual people.
I'm a virtual assistant. I'm all about the virtual.
Why do I need real people? And but I was so wrong, and it is so cool. And some of the stories out of our co-working space here in Ottawa, it's called the Hub. They've got hubs all around the world. But the some of the stories, exactly like what you were saying, people that sit together and have different talent are creating these virtual digital agencies where they can service their clients fully, all from a co-working space. So it's just an incredible thing. And I really think that even if you are, when you're starting out, like you need to go immerse yourself with those and get in with those kind of people, because it will just inspire you and it will make you want to rush forward, because there's just so much passion in those places. It's exciting.
They're very fantastic. I've been in a few of them before, and they are fantastic places. And if you're in a city, there's little excuse because there's usually several. But if you're from a small town, you might not have a co-working space, but what there will be usually are some kind of clubs. There might be kind of like a woman's club or a gentleman's club. Where people come, and it's where a lot of meetings take place and a lot of working. It might not be a co-working space by name, but it's certainly a co-working space by nature in the same.
Or your coffee shop, your local coffee shop.
Yeah, it's where I do pretty much all my writing. And if I was to be locked away in my room all day, I wouldn't get anything done because the silence is haunting. But in the coffee shop, things get done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you very much, Erin. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I think it's a great insight to hear from someone who's been doing it for, a good amount of time now, 10 years, but still learning, and who saw an industry when it was, best part, nothing, and seen it grow. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It was really, really fun.
Cheers.
There you go, folks. Session 4 of the Purple Coffee podcast, inspiring stories from courageous entrepreneurs, is at an end, and a huge thanks to Erin for being part of this and the Successful Mistake. It was an absolute honour to meet her and to interview her and to gather some storytelling goodness. What a great addition to the Successful Mistake It is. And I'm sure you can, emphasize. Maybe you've gone through similar things Erin have, or maybe you've gone through different hiring mistakes. It's such a minefield. And if you continue to follow this podcast, you will hear more hiring mistakes along the way, because it's something that crops up again and again in my interviews. And that, my friend, is that. But before you do go, please head on over to turndogmillionaire.com and check out Session 4's page, because there are links on there to Erin and her Facebook page and website and Twitter and all that jazz, as well as the Kickstarter campaign for I Am Love You. Of course, if you want to head straight there now, you can do so via the Bitly link, which is bit.ly/purplecoffee4. I would also appreciate it if you considered subscribing to the Purple Coffee podcast, and you can do it in a few ways. If you like to watch with your peepers, you can follow the Vimeo channel. And if you like to listen with your ears, then you can subscribe to the iTunes channel. All that is found on bit.ly/purplecoffee4. bit.ly purplecoffee4. There we go. Or you can just head to the website and search until you find it, whatever floats your boat. And that's it. Thank you for listening/watching. It's been a pleasure having you. A real big thanks to Erin. I hope you took a great deal from it. And until next time, have a marvellous one.